Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Lung Cancer Living Room. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Living Room, it's a support and education program designed specifically with people diagnosed and or really at risk for lung cancer in mind. Typically, as those of you who are veterans to this programming, we have a guest speaker come in and talk about varying aspects of the disease. Tonight, you get me and my co-host here who hasn't been sitting next to me for quite a while, since I think before COVID. So we are thrilled to have the illustrious Bonnie Addario, co-founder and survivor of Go-To for Lung Cancer, sitting back with us tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about a year of hope, and we're going to really discuss a lot of what myself and my colleagues have been working on this year and the reach and impact we've had into our community. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the exciting developments that happened even outside of Go-To. I know you all know, or I hope you all know, and if you don't, come find out, about all the support, services, and education that Go-To provides. But I don't know if you know about all the other things Go-To does. And we did something similar last year where you got to meet sort of the leaders of the Go-To organization. And I thought it was apropos that this year we take a dive into some of our successes. And like I said at the beginning of this, the impact that we are having and hope to continue to have in an even greater way moving forward. So with that, I'm going to jump into this ridiculously long PowerPoint presentation that I opted not to put up on the slide, on the thing, because it's like death by PowerPoint, right? But I do need it. I can tell you and answer questions to whatever you want to know about the support services department, but I depend on my colleagues to just give me high-level information on theirs. And we're going to start with science and research. And I think most of you know that Go-To Science and Research Department works really closely with our sister organization, the Addario Lung Cancer Medical Institute. So you'll hear about some of the work that Go-To is doing, some of the work that Alchemy is doing, and then you'll see where that crossover is and the work that we are doing together. Our overall impact is that we've had, in 2023, 14 scientific presentations. We submitted 14 abstracts, so obviously everything was accepted. We published 5 manuscripts, and we were invited to 9 speaking engagements. So I think for a relatively small organization, that speaks volumes about the capabilities of our science and research team. Over 43 Go-To centers of excellence, and we're going to talk a little bit about our excellence in healthcare delivery team, but this is some interorganizational crossover work that happens. So over 43 of our Go-To centers of excellence and a few other clinical sites have been engaged across 6 active research studies in 2023. Over 877 people with lung cancer are participating in active Go-To clinical research studies in 2023, which is, to me, an incredibly proud thing to be able to say, because those of you who are not new to this space know we talk over and over again about studies that never even get off the ground because they have trouble recruiting people to participate in studies. So I think that's a really huge number for us. We secured $1.3 million in industry funds to launch our Succeed study. The Succeed study is set up to establish a plasma-based biobank for small cell lung cancer translational research, and this is important, and I know some of you know that we've really taken small cell and wrapped our arms around it and are trying to create in small cell what we now have in non-small cell that really didn't exist when you started this foundation. So we're incredibly proud of this study. And then the science and research team worked with our healthcare delivery team in our centers of excellence to develop a patient-centered research designation. So community centers around the country can work towards this designation, and what it effectively is doing is bringing research into the community where we know the patients are. You know, you say all the time, and I don't know if this stat's still true, so don't quote me on it, but it was not that long ago that 50% of all clinical trials happen in 10 states.
Still true.
Yeah, and like, how are people supposed to access this life-saving, right, type of research studies and access these therapies if they're only in 10 states? So us being able to bring this type of designation and this type of research into the communities where the people are is a huge, huge step in the right direction. We have done a lot of work, and I think you guys have heard me talk about this in health equity and disparities, and I know at some point during COVID, it became pretty big buzzwords. We heard it like all over the place, and GoTo has taken it incredibly seriously. We have been working with, for about the last 2 years, a health equity consulting firm called FSG. Please don't ask me what that stands for because I do not know. But they really took the first year to do this deep dive looking at lung cancer in disparate communities across the country so that we could make better judgment calls on where our work would be best served and most benefit the people at risk or diagnosed with lung cancer. Year one work, a manuscript was published, and it's called Health Inequities Across the Lung Cancer Care Continuum in 10 Marginalized Populations, a Narrative View. Why they always make these so long, and that's why I have to read it, because I can't remember. But we're really, really proud of that, and we're working on a second paper right now for publication. We secured 14 new community partnerships with a project called Ready Lung, and this again is pointing towards some of the inequities work that we're doing through science and research, and you'll see it as I'm talking through the different departmental work, how the health equity stuff sort of rolls up into it. But this is really looking at assessing the community's readiness to address disparities, right? First, we have to figure out how ready they are or are not to serve the people that actually live within their communities. We secured another $350,000 to launch Program Connect. And this one's really interesting because it's looking right now to educate, engage, enroll, and evaluate screening treatment outcomes in marginalized communities. This is the screening and challenges around healthcare is not a one-size-fits-all problem or solution, right? Each of these communities has very different yet clear challenges when it comes to not only accessing healthcare, but being delivered appropriate and quality healthcare. So this is geared towards looking at that. And then we identified the top 21 counties experiencing lung cancer disparities that led to an abstract publication and will formalize a lot of our partnership strategies for 2024. Our research team has been very busy.
Yes.
Lung Match, which I think a lot of you are familiar with. This is a program run through the Science and Research Department with very close ties to patient support service. So our Lung Match navigators are there as an extension of our helpline support to help you navigate through next generation sequencing reports. What does this biomarker testing mean? What does this report actually say? How can you educate me on what my results are so that I can have a better conversation? But also, and I don't want to say more importantly, but equally as important, to help people navigate the clinical trial space. Anybody who's ever gone to clinicaltrials.gov or will go to clinicaltrials.gov to try to figure out how to navigate that is an impossibility, even for a lot of healthcare providers. It's not very intuitive, it's not easy to navigate, and quite often the results are often challenging to understand. So our navigators will take this personalized approach and will talk with you in detail about what treatments you've had, you know, how many treatments you've had, what line of therapy you're on, any complications you may or may not have had, and then they will work with you to identify clinical trials within a radius that is appropriate for you and what your wishes are. I love this program so much, and it's actually one of my pet peeve areas, and Matt, who is one of my science and research colleagues, he's been on since September, and he's now overseeing this program. He's fantastic, and we both have been noodling on and have great aspirations to expand this program as much as possible because I think the benefit is so worth it to the patient. We had 158 referrals to Lung Match Navigation this year. I'm really, really proud to say that 56% of those were new contacts. So these are people that didn't already know us, so over half.
And some of our patients have helped us get there.
Refer, sure, of course. And I know we've got phone buddies in the room
Mm-hmm.
and probably phone buddies watching, and we're going to talk a little bit about support services at the end. That's part of that mentorship program
Right.
when your phone buddy gets to a crossroads into the decision-making process to then go and refer back to Lung Match.
And very often when the patient is chatting with one of these people, and Larry knows this, very often the patient has absolutely no idea. Their physician who initially diagnosed them has no idea. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it just goes on and on and on about all of the things that even the doctors out there don't know. Mm-hmm. So this is a huge step in the right direction for us.
Yeah, I agree. We hear from healthcare providers all the time, particularly through some of the work we do through our Center of Excellence network, about their own challenges and barriers to identifying appropriate clinical trial options for their patients. So we really see ourselves as an extension of healthcare teams within these communities across the country and really around the world, and we'll get into some of that global stuff later. But I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
One of the other programs, and Matt again is overseeing Renee, who's working on this, and it's called Nuestra Gente. Do you like my Spanish accent?
Nuestra Gente.
I was just checking, see if you like my Spanish accent. But it's really a pilot, like Spanish language-based program geared at one of the barriers to care is language, right?
Absolutely.
And
Huge.
there are pockets, large pockets, around this country where Spanish is first language
Right.
for people diagnosed with lung cancer. It's a audiovisual resource library where we've got in-print and videos geared towards the Spanish-speaking population to educate them on their disease. We were actually awarded, and this is happening in January. Matt's going to go represent on behalf of Go-To Science and Research Team, but from Sanofi, their Health Equity Accelerator Award. And it was a $50,000 award specifically for this work from Sanofi in health equity. So we're also incredibly proud of
And for anybody that doesn't know what Sanofi is, it's a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah. And then there's our registry. So a lot of you who are veterans back from the old ALCF days remember me talking and probably hemming and hawing about having to learn what skip logic meant and how to actually build a registry and the hours that were spent trying to take what I knew about lung cancer and put it into some sort of software platform. And we all know I know very little about technology. But our lung cancer registry to date has about a little over 2,600 total users, representing over 60 countries. So the registry is available in, and if Heather's watching, is it 5 or 7 languages? It's either 5 or 7 languages. So we've got 60 countries represented. One of the things that we did, because we listen, we talk to people diagnosed, we want to hear feedback, we listen to what you were saying. In the sort of baseline survey where we're just trying to gather as much information about your diagnosis and sort of the pathway that not only led you there, but what it has been since, was one big long survey. And survey fatigue is a real thing. So Heather has worked really hard at creating a modular sort of approach to this. And since we've done that, enrollment has gone up considerably. I think that's on here. 192.5% increase in participation since we did that. So we heard, we listened, it's working. We released a new survey module, again, on small cell lung cancer this year around treatment, decision making, and access to care. We established a partnership with Loyola Marymount University, looking at lung cancer stigma research, and we received $500,000 to launch lung cancer risk survey, incorporating low-dose CT scans on AI-compatible platforms. So this has been our dream for a long time, to take imaging and attach it to these patient-reported outcomes, so that when we are sharing this information with the research community, they're looking at both and hopefully can discover new things. So we have 7 surveys in the registry right now. So the baseline survey that I talked about, an ALK-specific survey, a caregiver survey, a COVID-19 survey that we did during the middle of the pandemic, an IO survey, and then the sexual health in women. So if anyone is interested in participating, and I refer to it sort of as donating your data for the overall good of discovery. It's lungcancerregistry.org. It's not a hard URL to find, and I highly encourage you to support that effort. Heather does a great job. Evie, you have a question?
Yeah, I have. I was curious. Do other lung cancer groups refer to the registry? Will they refer patients to it?
Yes and no. So when we originally pulled this together, we wanted it to be open access for all, and that included other nonprofits, whether they're working specifically in lung cancer or just general cancer. So we did have a couple people jump on board and help with that in the early days, but they pretty quickly fell off. I can say we're the only nonprofit out there running a lung cancer specific registry. And we've partnered with other, not necessarily nonprofits, but other groups, and are in conversations right now.
With profits.
For-profits, yeah. We're in conversations right now with how we might even be able to expand on some of this work with other nonprofit groups outside of the lung cancer space.
Thank you.
Sure, Larry?
Danielle, can you just speak to who the data is made available to, and if it's anonymized, because people may have some concern about that?
So everything is anonymous. Nothing's given away with your name and your social security number. So it's all anonymous information, and it's shared with researchers who become part of the registry itself. So it's not just like this is open information and anybody with a computer can get in. The researchers and the scientists actually register to become part of this registry. They're vetted through this process and then given access. Now I'm going to talk about alchemy a little bit. So there are currently 5 studies in alchemy revolving around IO, ALK, KRAS, and epidemic of young lung cancer. In 2023, we did hire a new permanent full-time position, a clinical project manager. Her name is Erica. She's fantastic. Alchemy's PI, which is a primary investigator for one of the studies, Mark Awad, who's an MD PhD from Dana-Farber, was the recipient, for those of you who were able to attend our gala this year, of our Asclepios Award for his work, and he's specifically working on some of this ALK stuff. We had 60 new patients enrolled across the lung cancer studies within alchemy, and I touched on it before, but I think it's important enough to touch on it again, that the single largest alchemy trial budget accepted by a pharma-sponsored funder of $1.33 million is Alchemy 023, and that is a SUCCEED study looking at small cell lung cancer. And like that will almost bring me to tears, because we've worked so hard and have done so many good things, and for it to be acknowledged in this sort of magnitude in this way, I think is fantastic. Yeah. In 2024, they're planning on launching Alchemy 018, and this is in tandem or in collaboration with our healthcare delivery team. And that's a turnaround time study looking at, in the community centers, if biomarker testing can be done wherever you might be diagnosed or wherever your biopsy happened. Can we time to treatment? Can we shorten that window and what that looks like if we don't have to send it out and then wait for it to be processed and then wait for the results to come back? So that, go ahead.
Can I'd just like to tell a little story about Lisa Briggs in Australia.
This is one of our earlier studies.
One of our earlier studies, and it was the young lung cancer study. And she wanted to be in the trial. And she couldn't be in the trial because she was living in Australia, and Australia wouldn't allow the tissue to be shipped in a vial. It wasn't approved by, I know, it's ridiculous, right? Who's watching
however
this stuff?
However they
Right.
housed the...
However they, look into that.
Collected it, yeah.
So she said, no, I'm coming. I'm going to do this. She said, I'm going to come to California, and then I want to give you my tissue when I get to California.
Glad, yeah.
So we all sat around and we looked around and went, well, this is interesting. Let's see what we can do about this. So she came with her family, and she went to a hotel. We sent a phlebotomist up to the hotel to take her tissue, and she was in the trial the next day.
I want to clarify, we weren't doing biopsies in the hotel room. We were just pulling, we were doing
the
blood,
tissue,
blood draws.
right? Yeah, we were doing blood draws. Sorry, but it was for a biopsy. Yeah. So I mean, our foundation has always been, don't tell us no. We can figure out a way sooner or later to get it done, whatever it might be.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that's so fascinating and fantastic about alchemy is decentralizing these trials, so people anywhere can participate.
Right.
And we can do sort of some of those earlier studies to inform and provide information for some of the larger studies. And genomics of young lung is a perfect example of that, because you could be anywhere in the world and provide your samples. And one of the things that this was another study through alchemy that was published on, and presentations were given and posters were made everywhere looking at lung cancer in people under the age of 40. And what they did find through that study is upwards of 80% of these people did have targetable mutations. and we only looked for mutations we knew of at the
Right,
time, right?
right,
Since then,
right.
other things have happened. So something is different in this younger population, which brings me to this sort of final piece. And this is something that's been in the works for a long time, but the MOU has been signed. The work will start in 2024. And it's a collaborative effort with Dana-Farber, GoTo, and Alchemy. And it's an extension of another study that ran through Alchemy called Inherit, looking at EGFR T790M as a germline mutation, so something you might be born with. We just published on that a couple of months ago.
Yep.
So this is taking the good work and discovery that came from Inherit and moving that needle forward, right? In a way where if we can identify and prove that lung cancer is an inheritable or genetic disease, how might that impact the way we're looking at screening and treatment, quite honestly, right? Across the board. So we've already raised quite a bit of money specifically for Inherit. We're incredibly proud of this partnership. Like I said, it's a long time in the making. So that is going to be starting in 2024.
Yeah, and these two studies, both the young lung and Inherit, are something no one else is doing out there.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form. So.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah.
So our Center of Excellence program, I think, and I know a lot of folks in the room, but those of you watching might not know, is a program that has identified, it's a designation-based program. We currently have 907 centers around the country who have received one of the 10, sorry, Joelle, if you're watching, I think it's 10 designations. So it's is it 10? Yeah, Evie does a lot of the work helping us write our funding proposals, so she'll know exactly where I might be messing up explanations of some of these. But it really starts with early detection. It runs through IPNs, or incidental pulmonary nodules, and those are those nodules that are missed. Maybe you were in a car accident and somebody does a CT scan and they're like, good news, nothing's broken and your spleen hasn't ruptured, but nobody's looked at the lungs, and or if they did see something on there, it wasn't discussed with the person to go on and look for that moving forward. So incidental pulmonary nodules are a big bugaboo of mine. Things like that should not go unmissed. But also it runs through proper upfront comprehensive biomarker testing, as I mentioned earlier, patient-centered research. It goes through survivorship, health equity, and others. I don't know what I'm missing there, but there's quite a few. Like I said, we actually grew to 907 this year, including one new VA facility, and there's 15 new applications in process. We had our Center of Excellence Summit in Washington, D.C. this past October. I was there. We actually held a regional living room. It was a fantastic meeting, and this is where we can bring folks from the centers together, and we can push information, relevant information on what's happening with lung cancer right now to them.
And so much of the beauty of this is we're teaching the community docs how to do this.
Yeah.
You know, in these 900 sites.
Working with them, yeah.
And they want to learn, and they want to do this. It's amazing.
Joelle and her team have been incredibly busy expanding this program, adding sort of these adjunct sort of other program areas to it. One being our Global Knowledge Center for Lung Cancer. This is a provider education program, so we can roll out and push out provider education to the community centers, sort of PRN, or as we want to. There's been an uptake in users, 150% of increase in course enrollments in 49 states and 19 countries worldwide. So there's a big need, particularly in the community setting, to reach or for access to information like this, even from the healthcare providers. As I already mentioned, the turnaround time study with Alchemy, and then this sort of is an in tandem also excellence in healthcare delivery, working with our policy team, and it's an extension of our MOU with the VA for another 3 years. That's from some of the work that we're doing in screening and early detection. She also developed a lung cancer core curriculum, and what this really is and we not piloted it, we launched it at the COE Summit, and I thought this was a brilliant idea because one of the things that we know is navigators are key within these centers to help push patients correctly through this process. And she set up this curriculum so it doesn't have to be a nurse navigator, it can be a patient navigator, a person navigator receiving this training in order to help better the lung cancer programs at the centers that they're working at. That was a wildly huge success. It was one of the first sessions to fill up, so they actually opened it up and expanded access to folks being able to access that information. Joelle worked really, really hard and received a PCORI grant. For those of you who don't know what PCORI is, it's a Patient-Center-Oriented Research Engagement Award. They do not hand these out like candy. These are very, very, very hard to get, and it's a wildly competitive sort of space. And so GoTo received the award. Joelle did a lot of the yeoman's work, and I think Evie probably helped with a little bit of it. And it's about building capacity and patient engagement within a stigmatized lung cancer community. And this kind of points back to what I was saying earlier about how do we bring lung cancer out of the shadows. And I think we've done great over the last 15, 16, 17, 18 years, but not enough, right? Like, not enough. I still
Exactly.
talk to,
I mean, we've done it over 16 years.
yeah, 17 years. I mean,
Yeah.
I still talk to patients regularly. Michelle talks
Yeah.
to them all the time. People are terrified. They've never met another lung cancer patient. They don't know where to turn for information. They don't know how to have conversations with their healthcare providers. I mean, and it's a big problem. So we're thrilled for Joelle and her team.
Well, we all grow up to think that, doctors are magicians and nurses are magicians, and all these people are, they know everything, and you just go to them and everything's going to be just ducky, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's just not always the case. So, you have to learn how to fight for yourself and fight for the information you need to survive. And you have to work at, just don't sit back and wait for somebody else to do it for you, because it's not going to happen.
It's very true. And then there's a LIFE project, and that LIFE stands for Leveraging Patient Advocacy and Faith-Based Partnerships to Educate, Activate, and Prepare Black Communities to Improve Survival from Lung Cancer. Another mouthful. But that's really community outreach and engagement. We're piloting this work in Tennessee. Some of it was already done, and you guys may have heard us talk about ALCASE in the past, which happened in Alabama. So we'll see what comes of that, but we're really excited to have received the funding for that. Community engagement, Jen's not here tonight, but we had a great year when it came to events and really pulling the community together. We had 5 events in 7 cities, Florida, Texas, Pennsylvania. We had the Summer Jam, which of course is a national, if not global event. And then we have the 3 5Ks in California. We increased the number of participants 60%, which is huge. Coming back from COVID, as I'm sure you guys have heard, has been a monumentous effort. People are still unsure, unafraid, don't want to be in groups, not sure how to even be in groups anymore. So the events team has done an incredible job, led by Jen, and I know a lot of you in the room know her. She's got a fantastic group working with her to try to increase those numbers, and the 60% number, I think, speaks volumes. And one of the interesting sort of tidbits or facts is most often when somebody registers for an event and you ask them why they chose to register, it's usually, oh, I have a family or member or a friend who was diagnosed. And this year, the number one reason is that I just want to help. This is my first time ever, and I just want to help. So we're really attracting sort of some new people even outside of their family friend space to come back and support the cause. We also had 2 golf tournaments, 3 endurance marathons. There was, New York, Hawaii, and then the U.S. Marine Corps Marathon. And then, of course, our gala, which was just in November, where this lovely lady was oh so justly honored for all of her work in the past 2 decades that she has dedicated to this disease. And for those of you who don't know, and I know a lot of you contributed to it, we set up a Bonnie J. Addario Legacy Fund in her honor to support the things that we know are important to her and her mission and her vision. And we raised right around $1.7 million for that fund right out of the chute. And I can't thank you all enough. I mean, I think it also speaks to you and your vision and the work, and all of us foot soldiers over here who are out there getting the work done. But we've really tried to, and Emily and Ayers, who I think a lot of you may or may not know, and her team are really trying to figure out better ways to diversify our funding opportunities so that we can. I mean, We are a nonprofit organization, right? We are dependent on the kindness of others in order to keep this good work going.
Right.
One of the things I think we need to do more, maybe not as long-winded as I'm doing it tonight, but is have conversations like this so that people who are supporting us know where their dollars are going and what type of impact that it's having. Stay tuned for our 2023 impact report, which will be coming out hopefully in Q1. Government affairs and health policy. This one will be quick. And Elridge, if you're watching, Elridge is like my sister from another mother, and she spearheads our government affairs, particularly around the Voices Summit and a lot of the stuff that happens up on the Hill. And every time we have a conversation about this, it doesn't matter how many years it's been, I'm like, can you explain that to me again? Because I'm just like politically uncharged to understand a lot of it. But what I can say is our Voices Summit last year was a huge success. Larry, you were there. In fact, our very own Larry received an award while we were there last year. This year's summit is coming up March 3rd through 5th. Don't quote me on that, but it's like right there, 2nd through 5th, 3rd through 5th, 2024. I will be in attendance again on the Hill. This year we did a reintroduction of the Women in Lung Cancer Research and Preventative Services Act with the Women's Health Coalition. Fiscal year 24, in 2023, we secured $25 million. We did get a presidential complimation? No. Look at, I have only had 3 sips of my wine, I promise. Proclamation from President Biden. Acknowledging Lung Cancer Awareness Month.
Right.
As November. And Anita and her team are doing a lot of this work on the coverage and reimbursement end. And right now, we have state biomarker coverage in 13 states, which isn't enough. We know it's not enough, and we're working hard state by state to ensure that people
One person can't do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not possible for one person to do it.
Yeah.
She works hard.
Marketing and communications is sort of like IT and like administration and finance, those overarching departments that do the work that help us sustain and reach the people that we need to. And I think the thing that I want to focus on in marketing, and if you haven't seen it, let me know and I'll send it to you, but was the work that was done on our PSA this year. So Tony Goldwyn, who's an actor, some of you may or may not know who he is, he lost his mother to lung cancer. Mm-hmm. And so through a connection with one of our board members, we started having conversation. He was like, you know what, I want to do something. I want to put my voice and my stamp behind the good work that GoTo is doing. And we know how hard it is to find celebrities to come and speak out on behalf of this disease. So with the magic and the help of our very own James Hall, who I know a lot of you also know from Onyx and Ash, we were able to pull together. We had a very short amount of time with Tony to get this done. So it was sort of this all hands, or only the hands that must be there on deck, because we didn't have time to waste to get it done. But I want to talk a little bit about the reach of that PSA, and I jumped ahead. So it's going out in a phased approach. So the first one, it started in November, obviously, it's running through May. Second one is May through December, so we're gonna, utilizing different channels, whether it's radio spots, social media, TV, to see what has the most bang for its buck. I really want to find the number. Okay, so the impressions across the board, so this is audio, programmatic video, YouTube, native, some other acronyms I don't understand. We've had 1.674181, so 1.68 million impressions just since November 1st with this PSA, and that's with a total of 15,158 users. So these people are really activating around this PSA. It didn't hurt that Tony, who we found out, I guess manages his own Instagram account, did post it on his account, and so we got a ton of hits from that. I will also say that the outreach that's been happening, maybe because of the PSA, or in part because of the PSA, but also in part because some of the work that we've been trying to do, increasing awareness around our brand and who we are and what we're doing. We were up 32.4% on our website users. So that's a big number to me. I keep seeing Evie nod. Social media too, this was interesting. So Zach, who's on the marketing team, who has, I don't know how long Zach's been here, but not too terribly long, but he's done an amazing job with some of our social media.
He's great. Yeah,
he's adorable. And through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or now X, LinkedIn, and YouTube, impressions is 18.7 million, which is up 72%, and engagement of that is with 296,000 folks, so that's up 69%, which is also very, very exciting. So now what I do, why I love my job, right? I know a little bit about all of this stuff, but I know a lot about what my area of responsibility is here, and that's to serve the people at risk and diagnosed with lung cancer in the best way possible to ensure the best outcomes for each and every one of them. Like, period, hard stop. Like, that is my goal year after year, day after day, month after month. Michelle, who I know a lot of you know on my team, but there's Nicole and Maureen and Miranda and Amy, who are all behind the scenes making sure that all of this happens. So I want to start with the helpline, because again, during COVID, like a lot of things, we saw these dips, right? People weren't calling, people were not paying as much attention to their lung cancer because they were too worried about their COVID, and so a lot of dips happened. But since 2021, in 2022, we were up 33.9% in helpline callers, and this year we're up 39.7%. So we're seeing, you know, that curve kind of move in the direction that we want it to. One of the very interesting things this year, again, 58% of the callers were new. They weren't callbacks, they weren't people who have hit a crossroads, they were new people who had never contacted GoTo before. And I'm also happy to say that that we do a satisfaction survey. Some of you may or may not know if you've ever called the helpline. And it's one simple question, like, how would you rate, you know, this experience? And we have 100% satisfaction on our helpline. So our helpline team, I think, does a really incredible job of supporting people where they are. We also had calls from 43 states and 21 countries. So also really big. Michelle's one of our helpline answers, along with Maureen and Miranda. Our phone buddy program, Larry, I don't know if you want to say a thing or two about what it means to be a phone buddy, but we had 133 matches this year, which is a good number.
The phone buddy program helps me give back to the community, but I think in reality, the person who is newly diagnosed, doesn't know where to turn, can talk to someone who's walked in their shoes. Mm-hmm. And I think the objective overall is to provide comfort, provide support, help them prepare to go to their oncologist with questions, and to better understand what lung cancer is for them.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that, finding comfort and support from somebody walking in the shoes, because I can talk till I'm blue in the face to somebody who's been diagnosed with lung cancer, but I can't understand the feeling, right, behind the diagnosis of lung cancer the way that someone who's been diagnosed and is walking in those shoes does. And Miranda, who's on the support services team, does a really fantastic job. I know those of you who know her, she's one of your favorite people, and I couldn't agree more. But she does a really fantastic job of trying to match people as like as she can. So if you're a male between this age range and you have grandkids or children, or you don't have children, or you're single or whatever, she really tries to match you that closely.
And I think the really important part of the match, in addition to the personal part, is the great majority of the match of the people who are talking to a phone buddy like me are people who have the same mutation, who are, we're experiencing the same treatment. Everyone responds differently to treatment in so many ways, but the experience of someone who's had that treatment, who can help you understand and help you know where to go to get help with side effects, to have questions to ask your doctor about that particular mutation, that particular treatment. It's very comforting.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's, I said this at the beginning, but it's one of the things I miss most about the Around the Room that we used to do before every living room, because there was a lot of learning opportunities when people were having conversations to say, I'm going through X, Y, or Z, and then somebody from across the room would be like, hold on, I got something for X, Y, Z, right? Or I know what you should, how you should have those conversations, which brings me into gathering hope, because I think that's really, we've tried to create although in a virtual sort of environment, an online support community that we just started in late 2021. So it's a little over a year old. 2 years old? And we've increased our registered participants by 112%. So something's working there, and we know that there is a strong need for people to be able to connect with one another in this very meaningful way. And it's not just connection and advice. I mean, it doesn't take much more than looking around the room to say these are lifelong friendships that develop, right? And support that you guys can give to one another is such an incredible piece.
Well, I talk to patients, a lot as well, and I find that, and some of you will relate to this, when you're talking to the patient, you find out they really know nothing. Yeah. They went to a doctor, and the doctor said, you have lung cancer, and then they write up a few things for you to, talk to your primary physician for. Then that's it.
Yeah,
That's it. They don't know what a mutation is. I mean, you ask them, well, what kind of a mutation do you have?
Did you have testing?
I don't know what a mutation is.
No.
I don't know what.
Yeah, and I
any
think
of
that's
this
where
is.
a lot of the support services programming is aimed towards sort of tackling that challenge of
Right.
becoming an empowered and educated patient in ways that will make somebody feel most comfortable. Because when you were diagnosed,
I didn't know
you would no more have gone to a support group meeting or asked for a phone buddy or any of that, right? And I think in general, a lot of people feel that way. But if they can be talked into doing it, there's not a one of them who doesn't say, I wish I had done this sooner.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I wish I had
I
engaged
wish I
in
knew
this
what
way
a
sooner.
mutation was.
Yeah.
I wish I knew what a targeted mutation was. I wish I knew that.
And I wish I had made a connection with somebody else diagnosed.
Simple. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
And bring them in and keep them simple, and it works.
Yep. So Miranda's been able to match people in 34 states, which I think is also pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We did launch a small cell community online support community in 2022 that kind of sits alongside our general lung cancer support group, and that's through a platform called Health Unlocked. And our small cell online community jumped 46% this year. So we're making those strides in the small cell space that make me so incredibly proud. Our publications distribution this year was about 61,000 shipped, so hard copies shipped, and then downloads just a little under 10,000. That number was actually a little down from last year, but I think we were expecting that, and I'm happy with that number given all the rebrand work and the health literacy work. We've taken our entire library and sort of turned it on its head to ensure that whoever has access to this information can easily understand the information that they're being provided. So big shout out to Amy Camp-Schroeder on my team for all of her work on that. Not to mention we created 6 new materials. The living room community, which is an online sort of register for the community so that we can remind you, A, about living rooms that are coming up, but B, if you can't make it, we can provide you with either show notes and or links to relevant information or living rooms that you wanted to have, that you would like to watch, and that was up 48%. I should tell you guys, all these numbers are through November, so that doesn't even include the last month. But through November, a little over 38,000 views of the lung cancer living room in 38 countries. The top 5 countries were US, India, Hong Kong, Philippines, and Canada. And new countries in 2023 were Cambodia, Bangladesh, North Macedonia, and Uganda. So it's really fascinating for us, and that's helpful to us, especially when we're thinking about translating materials, who's coming to us and what are their needs. I already talked about the FSG work that we did, and we had published phase 1 of phase 2 of FSG was to take all of that information, and then Nicole and Maureen, who are on the PSS team, have been spearheading these health equity efforts and are working with all of the other departments to integrate into their strategic planning some of these health equity strategies and these learnings that came from phase 1. So the first part of that has happened with all of the departments, and the second half will be happening in early 2024. So we've done a lot.
That's all.
But that's all. But I do want to talk about some of the things. A lot of you have participated and seen us talk about Best of ASCO or what's come out of ASCO or World Lung. And there were 3 different approvals that happened this year. One is Gavrito, and that's happened in the RET gene fusion. One is Braftovi in combination with Mektovi. You know, I'm giving you the generic names. And that's for BRAF, V600E mutation. And then Keytruda has been approved neoadjuvant and adjuvant for early stage disease. This has all been a big thing over the last 24 months, where both targeted therapies and immunotherapies have been looked at in the early staging space, because prior to some of these discoveries, even if you were found early and you had surgery, the recurrence rate was still way higher than it needed to be. So we're really excited about those drug approvals. And then the data showing promise. Again, we gave updates after World Lung in September, but one in particular around small cell revolves around a third-line therapy option for people diagnosed with small cell lung cancer. In the history of never has there been a third-line therapy option for people with small cell lung cancer. And then obviously,
Let alone a first line.
yeah, obviously more happening and coming down the pike in targeted therapies, immunotherapies, and combination therapies. And one of the things I want to note here, and then I'm closing up, is these types of approvals and promises, and even the good work that we do, are only achievable because of people like you. I mean, honestly, like, if it weren't for you all either spreading the word, supporting us, or more importantly, participating in clinical trials, and I don't think people are thanked near enough for their participation. Without it, and I know a lot of you have heard me say this before, but it makes me crazy. Just thank you, Rick, right? Thank you, Larry. I mean, thank you anyone who has participated in trials. Joanne, I know you have. It's such an important part of this process, and is such a benefit not only to the people in the trials, fingers crossed, I mean, that's the hope,
It's
right?
the ones coming up
But it's
behind
the
them.
ones coming up behind them, and it's people that participate in studies like this that are allowing for just wait for the next best thing, for the people who are on the current best thing. So thank you to those of you who do participate.
Thank you for all the work you do and all the help you do with other patients. You have no idea how much they appreciate that. And we see patients come in here all the time, and they leave and they go, I didn't know that. That's amazing. Are you kidding me? What? You know, and I'm looking forward to the day where they go, yeah, I knew that. We know that. We're doing this. We're doing, and that's what we want them to do. We want them to be informed, and we want them to know, what to ask for. So it's starting to happen.
It is.
I really feel compelled to say this, having been a caregiver and a patient, and now as a volunteer. I see this conveyor belt in front of me as you were talking. The Lucille Ball, and she's with Ethel, and the candy, they're coming down the line, and they got to get them. It's coming fast and furious.
Yeah.
Well, I know that, because I've counted, the number of programs that you've got to get funding for is it's over 30, I think. And you have to make the case every year. And the data helps to make the case.
Yeah, right.
But that doesn't just happen.
Right.
It takes money, it takes people, it
Time.
takes systems, it takes all of that. And so, and yes, a lot of the funding comes from corporations, pharmaceutical, biotech, et cetera. But it's also from individuals, and every one person sitting in this room has benefited so much from all of those programs. And it is a heavy lift. And all nonprofits go through it, and I've been in the nonprofit world all my life. But I can really say that whatever is given here is saving lives. And that's the way I always feel when we submit a grant, and whether it's 1 grant or 14 grants, it's a heavy lift every year. So thank you to everybody who uses the services and supports GoTo and loves the organization, because it really is saving lives.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you, Abby. And so many of you in this room and online have given back in so many ways. And we can't thank you enough for your support. I mean, we really can't, because we do it for you, and we couldn't or we wouldn't want to do it without you, whether
Well,
it's
we do
your
it
voice.
for you, but we do it with you.
Yeah. A thank you to our panelists, which I usually say, but that's just you and I today, so whatever. To everybody watching live, those watching post-live, to Karen for pulling together this fantastic feast for all of us today, to Penn Media for coming in, lugging all this equipment in here, and helping to make it so that we can air it to all of you in the coziness of your own living rooms, to Michelle over here for moderating, and to the entire GoTo team. I really want to give a shout out. They work tirelessly on each and every one of these things and more that we weren't even able to get into today. So big thank you to the GoTo team. And then of course our supporters, and this is a list I have to read, and I say it every time, but it's a long list because our supporters believe in the good work that this programming provides. So Amgen, AstraZeneca, Boehringer Ingelheim, Bristol Myers Squibb, Daiichi Sankyo, Eisai, Foundation Medicine, Genentech, Janssen Oncology, Merck, Mirati Therapeutics, Novartis, Regeneron, Sanofi, and Takeda. Thank you all for so much of your support. Until 2024, happy holidays to everyone, and cheers and big hugs and wishes for a healthy, happy 2024. Thanks, guys.
So I'll be brave if you're brave. I'll be brave, but only if you're